everyone, welcome to Katie Mack Comments, a channel where I, Katie Mack, comment. But in all seriousness, here on my channel we discuss social justice issues, pop culture, and feminism. So if any of that interests you, be sure to click the subscribe button down below. Today we're going to be talking about bisexuality in celebration of Bi-Visibility Day that just happened on September 23rd. I'm going to address common myths believed about bisexuality while also talking about my own experiences as a 22-year-old bi woman. So let's get into the myths. Myth number 1. All people who identify as bisexual agree on the definition of bisexuality. The word bisexual has shifted meanings many times since its first English usage in the late 1800s. The various meanings of bisexual are made up of the 3 A's: anatomy, androgyny, and attraction. Before bisexuality was considered a sexuality, it was a term used to describe people that we would now call intersex people, or people who have the anatomy associated with being both male and female. Then, in the 1890s, the meaning of being bisexual shifted to androgyny, or having psychological traits supposedly associated with being both male and female. By the late 1890s and early 1900s, bisexuality was emerging as a term used to describe one's attraction, specifically dual attraction to both women and men. Now, in 2020, with our understandings of gender and sex becoming increasingly complex, the term bisexuality continues to shift in meaning. The dictionary even provides multiple definitions for bisexuality, the first of which being of relating to or characterized by sexual or romantic attraction to people of one's same sex and of the opposite sex, and the second being of relating to or characterized by sexual or romantic attraction to people of one's own gender identity and of other gender identities. As a self-proclaimed bisexual, I consider the term to mean romantic or sexual attraction to many genders, including one's own gender. However, some, mostly older bisexual people, still see the term as specifically pertaining to attraction to only women and men. This idea brings us into myth number 2. Bisexuality follows a binary view of gender. The prefix bi usually means two or both, which made sense for bisexuality in the early 1900s when Western culture refused to accept the existence of more than 2 genders. However, as Western society's understandings of gender broaden, so does the meaning of the term bisexual. As the Trevor Project points out, many words describing sexuality were originally rooted in the gender binary, including heterosexuality, because the prefix hetero means the other of 2. As our society becomes more accepting of many genders, so too will our terms for sexuality. Even if the words themselves don't change, the meanings can change greatly over time, just like the word bisexual has. As the LGBTQ+ community grows and expands, new terms to describe sexual and romantic attraction develop as well. In recent years, the term pansexuality has gained traction in the LGBTQ+ community, which is defined as of relating to or characterized by sexual or romantic attraction that is not limited to people of a particular gender identity or sexual orientation. This brings us to myth number 3. Bisexuality is a completely different form of sexuality than pansexuality. The term bisexuality is actually an umbrella term that encompasses a bunch of different identities that all fall under the umbrella of bisexuality. Identities such as pansexual, bicurious, biromantic, sexually fluid, polysexual, omnisexual, queer, and more all fall under the bisexual umbrella. Now, this doesn't necessarily mean that anyone who identifies with any of these terms that fall under the umbrella consider themselves to be bisexual, but there is an inherent connection between bisexuality and these identities. The prefix pan in pansexual means all, implying that pansexual people are attracted to all gender identities, which may very well be true, but many pansexual people use the term pan to describe their attraction to people regardless of their gender identity. Personally, I use these terms to describe myself interchangeably because I would consider myself to be attracted to people regardless of their gender identity, but I also understand that many people, especially those not in the LGBTQ+ community, don't know what pansexuality is. When I first came out in high school, I considered myself to be bisexual, but I always felt like I didn't really care about my partner's gender, which I didn't always feel like was encapsulated by the term bisexuality. Now, in 2020, I see the terms bisexual and pansexual becoming more and more intertwined as younger generations begin to have more and more of an impact on the LGBTQ+ community. So while the formal definitions of these words may be different, I see more people than ever in the community using bisexual and pansexual interchangeably. Now that we've got the defining characteristics of bisexuality out of the way, let's dive into some more broad myths. Myth number 4. Bisexuality is a phase. The idea that bisexuality is a phase was born out of the usage of the term by lesbian and gay people who weren't ready to fully come out yet. These people who are actually lesbian or gay came out as bisexual first to kind of test the waters. Because of this, many people in and out of the LGBTQ+ community believe that identifying as bisexual is just a stepping stone to being fully gay. Bisexuals have often been referred to by those people as fence sitters or someone who just needs to pick a side. Some even tell us that they thought they were bisexual at one point too, only to go on to realize their true sexuality. While there are people who use the bisexual identity as a transitional phase before they come out as lesbian or gay, there are also many real bisexual people who truly identify with bisexuality and don't feel as though any other sexualities describe them. The idea that bisexual people are lying or are really just unsure of their real sexuality is incredibly biphobic, which is similar to homophobia, but is specifically directed at people who are attracted to multiple genders. This assumption of the inability to choose a side also exemplifies monosexism, or the assumption that all people can only be romantically or sexually attracted to one gender. We live in a monosexual society, meaning that collectively, we as Americans are made to believe that sexualities that experience attraction to multiple genders are seen as illegitimate and somehow inferior to sexualities that are defined by their attraction to a single gender. This belief also ties into our next myth. Myth number 5. Bi people are half straight and half gay. There's a common misconception that bisexual people are half straight and half gay, in part because that's the simplest way for people who don't fully understand bisexuality to engage with the term. However, simplifying bisexual attraction to either being fully gay or fully straight at any one time furthers the idea of monosexuality and its ingrained societal superiority. Many people also believe bisexuals to be half and half because assuming someone's sexual identity from their sexual and romantic behaviors is a popular way of determining sexuality, regardless of whether or not it's correct. Understanding bisexuality through the lens of past behaviors is problematic because many bi people have not experienced sexual or romantic encounters with people of multiple different genders. This in no way invalidates their bisexuality because, think about it, many straight or gay people know that they're straight or gay before their first sexual interaction. So why can't bi people know that they're bi without experiencing sexual encounters with every single gender? People also like to categorize bisexuality as percentages of straight and gay or percentages of attraction to men versus women. But sexuality is fluid and preferences change over time, and that's true for everyone, not just bi people. But when someone tells you that they're bisexual, they're not telling you that they're half straight and half gay. They're telling you that they're 100% bisexual. Another common misconception about bisexuality is myth number 6. Your sexuality changes depending on who you're in a relationship with. So we know that viewing bisexuality through someone's behaviors instead of someone's identity is harmful and often incorrect. But we must also acknowledge that there really aren't any bisexual behaviors that one can take part in. Like, if I was in a relationship with another woman, that relationship would be labeled as a lesbian relationship because it's a relationship between two women. If I was in a relationship with a man, it would be considered a straight relationship. Because there is no bisexual relationship or bisexual sex, we are only seen as the sexual and romantic behaviors we're involved in. This can be very invalidating to bisexual identities because of the immediate assumptions people will make about your sexuality based on who you're currently with. When bisexual people are in what appear to be straight relationships, we often experience biphobia from within the LGBTQ+ community, where some people claim that we don't belong because of our current partner's gender identity. Not only is this harmful to the bi person, but it's also harmful to the LGBTQ+ community as a whole because they're trying to eliminate many of the Bs in LGBTQ+. There is one exception to the idea that there are no bisexual sex acts because threesomes are often seen as inherently bisexual. Non-bi people, especially straight people in my experience, love to make assumptions that all bisexuals want to have threesomes simply because of our sexual identity. Being openly bisexual on Tinder is quite an interesting time because you absolutely will at some point be approached about having a threesome. The fascination of bisexuality and threesomes often comes in the form of seemingly straight couples looking for a unicorn, or a bisexual, usually a woman, who wants to have threesomes with them without making any emotional attachments. These people are referred to as unicorns because they're really few and far between in the bisexual community, even though straight people seem to think that all bisexuals want to have threesomes with them. Bi people are seen as existing only for other people's sexual pleasure and only in the most sexual ways. This ties into our final myth for the video. Myth number 7. Bi people are promiscuous and more likely to cheat than people of other sexualities. These misconceptions come from back in the 1980s during the AIDS crisis, when bi people were seen as bisexual pariahs or outcasts. Bisexuality as an identity really only became popularized in America in the 1970s, so many people who identified as bi in the 80s were relatively new to the term. Some of these people were married men who would go behind their wives' backs to sleep with other men. However, that was not a particularly large portion of all bisexual people. Once the AIDS crisis began, bisexual people, especially bi men, were seen as a huge threat to straight people because it was often assumed that bi people were cheating with people in the gay community and bringing AIDS back into the straight community by spreading it to their girlfriends and wives. While there was no evidence that bisexuals were spreading the disease at a higher rate than other methods of spread, such as sharing intravenous drugs, the stigma snowballed into beliefs that society still has about bisexual people today. Bi people are assumed to be more likely to cheat because they have more options, they're viewed as inherently more sexual than their straight and gay counterparts, and because all friends of bisexual people are often seen by their partners as sexual threats. The reality is that bisexual people are not more likely to cheat than straight or gay people, and the likelihood of someone cheating has much more to do with the kind of person they are than it does with their sexual identity. According to Psychology Today, a 10-year-long study on bisexual women showed that 89% of these women were in successful monogamous relationships. Another study on bisexuality and monogamy found that bi people who are in relationships but also want to have multiple sexual partners are more likely to negotiate an open relationship with their partner than to cheat on them. A person's sexual identity does not tell you everything you need to know about them. Before judging a person based on their sexuality, get to know them and judge them based on their character. If y'all want me to make another video about bisexuality, comment any questions you've been too afraid to ask down below. No questions are off limits. I want to leave you with a quote from the Trevor Project on bisexuality. Who you are attracted to, who you date, or who you have sex with does not make you any less or more bi. That's it for this video, but before I go, I want to remind you all to check the links down in the description box below for places to donate, sign petitions, and learn about the Black Lives Matter movement and how to support bisexual youth. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up, and if you've made it this far, comment "Bisexuality is valid" down below. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!